Good morning. The future will not reward those of you who see it most clearly. It rewards those who act on what you see. And this is what I call strategic agency. It is the ability to anticipate the future and act on it. As we just heard, there's so much noise in the world, and observation alone is just noise. I have met so many entrepreneurs who focus only on observing what's happening, and they don't think, what does it mean? But thinking alone is just theory. I've also met so many young entrepreneurs who think a lot, but they never act. They have great plans, they never execute. By combining the noise and theory into foresight and taking action, you can win. The history is full of examples where the signs were clear. Industry is about to be disrupted, technology is about to explode, society is about to shift. Yet, nothing was done. Kodak is a prime example. They were bankrupted by their own invention. Kodak invented the digital camera in 1975, and it is clear that the ability of the digital imaging grew with Moore's law, with the semiconductor industry. And already in 1980, it could have been clear that one day digital imaging will surpass film photography. By 1990, it was painfully clear. And actually at the end of the 90s, Kodak became the world leader in digital cameras for a short while. But in 2012, they were bankrupted by betting the house on film and photographic paper. Observe, think, and act. That is the three muscles I believe you need to build in order to achieve strategic agency. And that is what I want to discuss with you today. How do we deliberately build those three abilities to the maximum? I'll share three examples that show how you can craft strategic agency for yourself. In the first one, we'll just focus on observation. We'll talk about demographics. In the second one, we'll focus on both observation and thinking, and we'll talk about technology's impact. And in the third, we'll go the full path across observation, thinking to acting, and we'll focus on AI. South Korea is the world's lowest fertility country. To keep the population at the same level, you would need to have a fertility rate of 2.1. In South Korea, fertility went down from 1.2 a decade ago to 0.75. If we would assume that in 2020, God magically changed South Korea's fertility rate to 2.1, you can see the change in the number of fertile age female in the dotted blue line at the end of the curve in 2050. The curves are pretty much identical. Even if you could immediately change the fertility rate dramatically, it will have almost no impact. This is what I call the inevitability of demographics. And this is hard for people to understand. This is also something that is affecting we Finns, Japanese, Taiwanese, and increasingly more countries, including China. The UN population forecast for China is that they will have 700 million people in the year 2100, down from 1.44 billion at the moment. So cut in half. Think about the impact. And once your demographics development has gone far enough, there's no stopping it without immigration. In 2050, 50% of global newborns will be in Africa. Already in 2040, 40% of all newborns will be Muslims. Right now, people over 50 account for more than half of the world's consumer spending. Yeah. Sales of diapers for adults has already surpassed the sales of baby diapers in many countries. The point I'm trying to make is that demographics affects us all, every single business. If not at the first order of impact, then at least at the second order or third order. And by observing all these different aspects of what's happening through demographics, we can create an opportunity, or we can avoid disaster. So let's move on to thinking. And what is the odds that two speakers will have the same quote? From Ernest Hemingway. And the reason why I have this quote is that this is one of the typical mistakes we do when thinking. We ignore an inevitable progression of events until we are surprised by what we should have seen, just like Kodak. In the Battle of Britain, engineers studied the planes that landed, riddled with bullet holes. And they initially strengthened those parts of the plane that had bullet holes, thinking that they will protect the pilots in future flights. Until somebody realized that, hey, these are the planes that survived. The ones that didn't come back, they probably had bullet holes in other areas. So the weaknesses were in areas with no bullet holes at all. And this is an example of lazy thinking. We just do it superficially. But we can exercise this muscle. There are so many tools. We can become really good in scenario planning. We can think about the second and third order outcomes. We can build our own AI toolkit to help us to gain foresight. Try asking ChatGPT for existing processes for analytical thinking, and you'll find lots of them, lots of mental toolkits for you to think better. Funnily, many of them developed by CIA, but that's another story. So, to the second example, I have long had a theory that technology is the biggest value creator in the world, and it has an impact that is deeper and more fundamental than we realize. So if that's my hypothesis, how do I prove it? So first I tried to find out existing sources for how much is technology worth? Couldn't find anything. Then I thought, let's use technology stocks, publicly listed ones, as a proxy. So what is the value of all listed tech companies in the world? Couldn't find a source. So then I created a program that collects from Financial Modeling Prep, which is a data source, all the public listed company valuations across history and picked the tech companies. And what did I learn? During the last 10 years, the value of tech stocks has increased 510%. During that same period of time, all other sectors increased their value by 60%. So almost a 10x difference between the two. Okay, that's sort of nice if you're an investor. You should have invested in tech stocks. But what does it mean for the future? This is the paranoid optimist's principle. It says that in the absence of a counterforce, the default future is the continuation of the existing trend. What this means in practice is if you can observe a trend, whether that's Moore's law or the increase in value of tech stocks, and you can't identify a force that changes that trend, at least make that one of your scenarios, that it will continue, and think, what are the first order, second order, third order consequences of that trend continuing? So let's apply that here. These are mathematical extrapolations of the existing data. And in the next 10 years, value creation between 20 trillion, which would be a linear continuation, i.e. dramatically slowing down increase in the tech companies' values. And an extrapolated, using an exponential model, value of 145 trillion. Typically, people assume that the private sector is about the same value size as the public sector. So we need to double those numbers. So an additional value between 40 and 290 trillion. 40 trillion is about half of the current value of all other companies in the world publicly listed outside tech. So 40 trillion is a lot. 290 trillion is almost the same value as all real estate in the whole world. Every single building, all land. I don't think either one of these will happen. It will be somewhere in between. But this value is so immense that it affects the world in fundamental and weird ways. Trade wars, geopolitics, sanctions, tariffs. Many of the news that we have read over the last years have been confusing. But for some of them, if you view them through the lens of technology value creation, you suddenly understand, okay, this is why it happened. To create this as a tool, I'm going to publish these numbers and update them every month. So let's see how this continues. So then moving on to the third segment, third example, which is all about action. But we first have to observe, and then we need to think. And I'm using AI as an example. The first trend that we can observe is the increase in AI capabilities. And it has been so significant that just tests a few years old are completely obsolete. They don't test the capabilities anymore because the capabilities are beyond what they could test. So new tests have been invented. And in many, many areas, the AI capabilities are beyond a typical human beings. The second trend that we can see clearly is that inference prices are coming down. So running AI is becoming cheaper, up to 900x cheaper in a single year. So not a small drop in cost. The third trend that we can observe is the increasing investment into AI, which has been very rapid, and the numbers are extremely big. And there's definitely a bubble, as well, but it's not all about a bubble. And the fourth trend that I think is meaningful is the amount of expertise in AI. Just using one example, in Coursera, this online university, they have taught 162 million people on AI. And just during the last year, the number of AI learners in Gen AI has increased by almost 200%. So let's use the paranoid optimist's principle here. So is there a counterforce? And if there is not a counterforce, then we should assume that these four trends will most likely continue. And then we can think, what does it mean for our business, for me personally, for my kids, for Finland, for Europe? And obviously there are certain things that are sort of possibly problems: energy, availability of data for training purposes, or can we replace the training data, real-life training data, with synthetic data? Maybe we have a problem with the underlying technology. Maybe we need a new transformer. But I don't personally believe any of those are major issues. And this means that I think we'll have AGI sooner than 2030. But what does AGI mean? My very pragmatic definition is that AGI is like a colleague that I work with. It's a very smart colleague, always quite positive, thinking that my ideas are great, thanking me for them. But if I ask him or her to be critical, it will do it. But the AGI has read all the books in the world. It's great in all sciences in the world. It's pretty good in arts. It works 24/7. It never has a bad hair day. It doesn't go on strike. It's a pretty good colleague. And we are not that far away from feeling that AI can be that kind of a colleague. And how do we then, if we think about this, how do we take advantage? A couple fundamental things that you need to think about. One is, what constraints are disappearing? Very mundane things such as the size of the team. You used to need 15 people in a team to do something. With AI, maybe it's just 3. So the constraint on number of people is changing. Maybe it's talent. Talent used to be scarce. With AI, maybe there's no lack of talent anymore. Talent will become abundant. And you can continue looking at product impacts, cost impacts, time impacts. Maybe the constraints are changing. And you need to remember that when you start changing your processes, you should follow a list of 4 steps. The first one, think of if you can completely eliminate that process. That's always the best outcome. You stop doing that thing. If you can't eliminate it, automate it completely. No human touch required. If you can't automate it, have your customers do it for free. Actually charge them for that. If you can't do any of those 3, then just do it better. Use technology, use AI, increase productivity, decrease the time taken. And AI can help in all of these. There are 3 pitfalls that you should think about applying AI. The first one is we are not allowed. The legal department says that you can't put this information into Copilot. And then you ask the legal department, where is that data originally? Yeah, it's in the Microsoft Cloud, in Azure. Okay, so you have it, how did you get it? Yeah, I got it through Outlook. Okay, so it's going through the Microsoft systems. Do you know where the Copilot is? Yeah, it's a Microsoft system, but you can't put it in there. We have so much slowness, unnecessary slowness in applying AI. The second one is that we aim at a 50% improvement. That's so easy to do incrementally. You don't need to actually change anything. If you ask people to do a 500% improvement or 5,000% improvement, they will immediately realize that there's no way to do that without rethinking the whole process. And that's when AI comes to its power. And the third thing is that we have time. Things are not going to change quickly. Just as an example, in one dimension, to highlight the challenge, if classically decision-making was about intuition, historical data, and today it's AI-enhanced decision-making. We can get more data, we can analyze it better, we can maybe ask for advice. What will it be tomorrow? Then what will it require for us to implement that? Constant real-time simulation of our operating environment, intelligent predictions, real-time actions that impact our employees, our customers, things taken care of before I even know about them. But that requires reinventing how we operate. The middle stage is easy. The third stage is very difficult. So these were the three muscles that we need to exercise deliberately, not lazily, but focusing on them. How do we observe best? How do we think best? How do we act in the most efficient way? And the number one thing in building muscles is repetition. When Jack Nicklaus hit his 18th hole-in-one, somebody came up to him, patted him on the back, said, "You are such a lucky guy." Understandably, Jack didn't appreciate that comment. So he said that, "Yeah, it's a funny thing, I have noticed that the more I practice, the luckier I get." And that applies to all of us. The future is fast. The further we look, the bigger the area of possible futures is. Not all of them are plausible, so maybe the plausible futures are a smaller group. Some of them might even be probable. And definitely you should always be thinking what kind of a future would be preferable for you, for your business, for your personal life. Unfortunately, oftentimes the probable and the preferable don't overlap. And that's where you take action. You bring them together through your own actions. So, take action. Thinking doesn't matter if you don't act on it. Thank you. Thank you. I think we have time for one question, do we?
I think we have time for one question. Who's got a quick question? Oh, if you're leaving, I gave you bad information. There's only one food truck outside. All the other restaurants are in the lower gallery. There's one food truck, but plenty of fresh air. Pape really should have shocked me with my chip when I was doing that. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, one question. Who's got a question? Who's got a question? Perhaps there's one on the app.
Lots of Finns in the audience.
I've got a question if no one else does. How do you know in your organization or how do you deal with folks that are thinking dumbly versus smartly? You said you have to think cleverly, creatively, and I couldn't help but think that's easy to say, but hard to do, and certainly hard to catch while you're doing it.
I think you need to try to analyze why they would think dumbly. Oftentimes they are afraid of something. And being afraid stops you from being smart, being open to ideas, experimenting. And if you can alleviate that fear, you can remove the fundamental reason for people being or seeming to be dumb. Because people are not dumb, but they might look like that.
I know many people that do. I think with 40 seconds, I'm going to say that's not time for another question. But Risto, thank you very much. That was both exciting and terrifying. Thank you very much. Exciting and terrifying.